Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we are traveling back to a place where time stopped in an instant, yet somehow continued to speak. Beneath layers of ash and stone lies Pompeii, a Roman city frozen during an ordinary day that became unforgettable. This is not only a story of destruction, it is a rare doorway into daily life, into laughter scratched onto walls, footsteps worn into streets, and meals prepared just hours before everything changed. Pompeii invites us to stand beside shopkeepers, families, travelers, and workers, and to see the ancient world at human height. It shows us how people lived, what they valued, what they argued about, and how closely their lives resembled our own. The city feels distant in years, yet startlingly close in spirit. Every uncovered room whispers of choices made, routines followed, and moments interrupted. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, allow your breathing to slow, your shoulders to soften, and your thoughts to drift. Let your attention settle as we step into the streets of a city preserved by time itself. Let's begin. In the year 79, Vesuvius buried Pompeii in a single, terrifying day. In the late summer of that year, the mountain that had seemed like an ordinary peak above the Bay of Naples erupted with explosive force. A towering column of ash rose into the sky and began to fall back as pumice, light enough to drift, heavy enough to crush roofs as it accumulated. People listened for guidance, watched the horizon, and made fast decisions with incomplete information. Some fled toward the sea. Some stayed to guard family, valuables, or property. As hours passed, the danger changed shape. What began as falling debris became a succession of hotter, faster currents that moved with frightening speed. By the time the city fell silent, an entire urban world had been sealed under volcanic layers, and history had gained one of its most vivid time capsules. Ash and pumice sealed whole streets, preserving everyday life with startling clarity. Most ancient cities survive as foundations and scattered fragments, because weather, rebuilding, and reuse erase the small details. Here, the disaster did the opposite. Pumice filled courtyards and alleys. Ash poured into rooms through doorways, windows, and roof openings, settling into corners like powdered snow. When the deposit hardened, it locked objects in place, where they had been dropped, stored, or abandoned. That is why archaeologists can find a lamp beside a bed, a cup near a counter, and tools where a worker last set them down. Even footprints and cart tracks can remain, because the ground surface was protected before it could be worn away. It is an extraordinary kind of preservation, not polished and ceremonial, but domestic and immediate. It lets you meet the ancient world at eye level, in the middle of an unfinished day. Plaster casts captured final human postures, because bodies left hollow voids. When the buried city began to be excavated, diggers sometimes broke into pockets of empty space inside the hardened ash. These cavities were not random gaps. They were the outlines left behind after organic material decayed away over time. In the 19th century, Giuseppe Fiorelli realized those spaces could be filled. Liquid plaster was poured into a void, allowed to set. Then the surrounding ash was carefully removed. The result was a detailed cast that could preserve the shape of clothing folds, hair, and even the position of fingers. It is a technique that can feel unsettling because it brings you face to face with the instant a life ended. Yet it is also a form of evidence that speaks plainly. It shows how people tried to shield themselves, how families clustered together, and how fast the catastrophe overcame human plans. The eruption's darkness reached far away, turning midday into night. Ancient witnesses described a sky that lost its familiar colors, as if the world had been pulled under a heavy curtain. Fine ash can rise high and spread across wide regions, and an eruption plume can blot out sunlight in a way that feels impossible until it happens. In the affected area, daylight dimmed into a strange twilight, and then into darkness where people relied on lamps as if it were late evening. That change is more than atmosphere. It alters judgment, heightens fear, and makes direction hard to keep when streets are filling and landmarks vanish. The darkness also carried sound differently, with distant crashes and falling debris becoming harder to locate. For those outside the city, the same cloud could turn the horizon unfamiliar, and ashfall could dust fields and rooftops miles away. It is a reminder that the eruption was not a local incident. It was a regional event, with a reach that exceeded the city's walls. Pompeii is not a museum of elites. It records ordinary city life. Many ancient sites preserve palaces, temples, and monuments because those are built to endure. Pompeii preserves something rarer, a whole range of lives side by side. You can walk from a richly decorated house to a modest room above a shop, and the transition feels immediate. Workshops show tools, raw materials, and spaces organized for production. Street counters suggest quick meals for people who worked long hours. Inscriptions name individuals who would otherwise never appear in history, including freed people building new identities and families. Even the wear on thresholds and the patching of walls tells you about routine upkeep and practical choices. This breadth matters because it changes what history can say. It becomes less about emperors and more about neighbors. It becomes a record of how a city functioned, how it sounded, and how it depended on countless small tasks done by ordinary hands. The street grid reveals a planned city, shaped by commerce and crowds. Stand at a crossroads in Pompeii, and you can feel the logic of a working city. The streets are not random lanes that wandered into place over centuries. They form a network that guides people toward gates, markets, workshops, and public buildings. Some routes are wide enough for carts, while others narrow into quieter corridors where homes press close. Corners open into little pockets of space where you could pause without blocking traffic. Even the way buildings meet the street tells a story. Doorways, thresholds, and curb edges are built for constant movement. The plan also had to negotiate the land itself. Pompeii sits on uneven ground, so designers cut, leveled, and redirected paths to make the city usable. It is urban planning you can walk through, where every turn suggests purpose, pressure, and the steady pulse of daily trade. Some wall graffiti reads like modern jokes, insults, and love notes. Stone and paint held more than grand myths and official announcements. They held voices. On walls, people scratched quick messages that were never meant to last for centuries, and that is exactly why they feel so alive. There are playful boasts, sharp complaints, and teasing remarks that sound like conversations you might overhear today. You can see flirtation in a few hurried words, and you can see rivalry too, when someone mocks another person's character or competence. Some messages mark simple pride, like a name left behind to prove someone had been there. Others record everyday business in a surprisingly casual tone, as if the wall were a public notebook. Graffiti also reveals a wide range of literacy, because spelling and handwriting vary from confident to uncertain. It is history in its most human form, not filtered through official stonework, but captured in the moment. Pompeii had a huge amphitheater, built long before Rome's Colosseum. Long before the Colosseum rose in the capital, this city already had an arena designed for massive crowds. Its amphitheater was built in the late Roman Republic, and it could hold tens of thousands of spectators packed into steep seating. The building tells you something important about Pompeii's confidence. This was not a sleepy outpost. It was a place that invested in public spectacle, civic pride, and a social power of shared entertainment. The arena also has a darker story. Ancient sources describe a notorious riot at a gladiatorial show, when local rivalries exploded into violence and the emperor imposed punishment. That single event hints at the intensity people brought to these games and at how entertainment could become politics by other means. When you stand in the amphitheater, you are not just imagining combat. You are hearing the roar of a city that expected to be impressed. Many homes had indoor plumbing, fountains, and carefully engineered drains. Water shaped daily comfort in ways that can surprise a modern listener. Many houses received a supply routed through pipes, and some displayed it proudly in small courtyard fountains that offered both refreshment and status. The system relied on pressure, valves, and distribution points, and it worked alongside cisterns that collected rainwater for backup. Drains carried wastewater away, and stepping stones in the streets helped pedestrians keep their feet above muddy runoff when carts passed through. Inside homes, the layout often guided water where it needed to go, whether to a kitchen area, a basin, or a decorative feature in a garden court. This was practical engineering dressed in beauty. It also created daily routines. People filled vessels, washed, cooked, and cleaned, with an ease that was not guaranteed in the ancient world. In Pompeii, the sound of running water was part of the city's ordinary rhythm. Carbonized food survived, including loaves of bread still stamped by bakers. One of the most intimate surprises is what remained in kitchens and shops. Heat and ash can destroy, but they can also preserve by transforming organic matter into carbon. In Pompeii, that meant food sometimes survived as darkened, delicate shapes. Bakers produced loaves that were portioned for sharing, and some were marked with stamps that named the maker or the bakery. In a few cases, bread was found still in ovens, as if the workday had been interrupted mid-task. Storage jars reveal the kinds of ingredients people relied on, and charred remains can hint at what was considered a normal meal rather than a feast. These details turn history into something you can almost smell and taste. They remind you that the city was not living inside a textbook. It was living inside a schedule. Someone mixed flour, tended fires, served customers, and expected tomorrow to arrive like any other day. A lavish seaside villa nearby held frescoes so vivid they still glow. Just outside the city stands a villa that feels like a doorway into Roman luxury and private life. Its rooms were painted with large, immersive scenes that wrap around walls in rich colors, creating the sense of standing inside another world. The most famous cycle is often linked to mystery rites, with figures that appear to move in a silent procession across the room. Whether you read it as religious initiation, mythic theater, or aristocratic display, the effect is the same. It is deeply theatrical and surprisingly modern in its command of space and emotion. The villa also shows the contrast between urban bustle and elite retreat, with gardens and views that once faced the sea. Preservation makes the pigment feel freshly applied, and that visual immediacy can be startling. You are not looking at an idea of Rome. You are looking at a room that once hosted real footsteps, real voices, and real ambitions. Many victims died from surges of hot gas, not just falling ash. The eruption did not kill in only one way, and that is part of what makes it so frightening. After hours of ash and pumice, the danger could suddenly change into fast-moving surges of superheated gas and volcanic debris. These currents moved like an avalanche made of air and heat, racing into streets and buildings with little warning. In such conditions, shelter can become a trap. A sturdy wall cannot stop heat and choking air that pours through openings. This helps explain why some people were found indoors, and why flight was not always an option once the most violent phase began. The science behind these surges matters because it replaces vague disaster imagery with a clear mechanism. It also deepens the human story. People likely believed they had survived the worst, then faced a threat that arrived too quickly to understand. Pompeii teaches that in volcanic crises, timing can be everything. Roof collapses crushed some homes, showing the city fell apart in stages. In many places, destruction arrived gradually, and the built environment failed step by step. Pumice is light in the hand, yet it becomes heavy when it piles high on a roof. As hours passed, layers accumulated, beams strained, and structures began to groan. A roof might hold for a long time, then give way all at once, sending tiles and timber into rooms below. That kind of collapse changes how people respond. It can block doorways, cut off escape routes, and turn familiar rooms into rubble. It also reshapes the city while the crisis is still unfolding, because streets become choked with debris from above. This staged collapse helps explain why some areas look like they were abandoned in a hurry, while others show signs of longer endurance. The city was not destroyed in a single clean moment. It was battered, weakened, and finally broken as gravity and accumulation did their slow work. Volcanic pumice piled high, making streets impassable within hours. At first, falling pumice might have seemed survivable, like a storm of stones that could be waited out. Then, the depth grew. A few inches becomes a few feet, and suddenly, every step is work. Wheels sink and slip. Doors jam. People have to climb through what used to be open air. That growing layer also muffles sound, which can make the world feel unreal and disorienting. Streets that once guided movement become trenches with uncertain footing. Even finding the edge of a curb can be difficult when everything is buried under the same pale blanket. This is one reason evacuation decisions mattered so early. The longer someone delayed, the harder it became to move at all. Pompeii's streets preserve this reality in the very way they were filled, with deposits that show the city was slowly swallowed from the ground up. It is a reminder that disasters often win through accumulation, not only through sudden force. The shoreline changed after the eruption, altering the ancient harbor landscape. Pompeii once sat closer to the coast than it does today, and the eruption helped reshape that relationship. Volcanic deposits and later changes in the landscape could push the usable shoreline outward, filling in areas that were once water or marsh. That means the city's connection to the sea was not a fixed backdrop. It was an evolving environment. When you imagine trade and travel, the harbor setting matters, because ships and goods depend on depth, access, and safe landing points. After the eruption, navigation routes and coastal landmarks would have changed, and those changes could persist long after the ash settled. This is history on a geological scale. It reminds you that a city is never only buildings and people. It is also the ground beneath them and the water beside them. Pompeii's tragedy altered the map, and the coastline became one more chapter in the story of what the mountain did. A nearby town, Herculaneum, was buried differently, under deeper pyroclastic flows. Not far away, Herculaneum experienced the same eruption, yet the burial was dramatically different. Instead of being covered mainly by falling pumice for many hours, it was struck by dense pyroclastic flows that left deeper, more compact layers. That difference matters because it shows how a single eruption can create multiple disasters at once, depending on wind, topography, and timing. It also changes what survives. Aerial style affects heat exposure, pressure, and the way spaces are sealed. When you compare the two towns, you get a more complete picture of the eruption's complexity, and you stop thinking of it as one uniform cloud. You begin to imagine shifting phases, changing directions, and pockets of sudden lethal force. This comparison also makes the human story broader. People in neighboring communities faced different threats, made different choices, and left behind different traces. Together, the two sites form a paired lesson in how volcanic events can vary street by street, not just city by city. Wooden objects survived there, giving rare glimpses of Roman carpentry. Because of the way Herculaneum was buried, charred wood sometimes survived in conditions that are rare for the ancient world. That opens a door into Roman life that stone alone cannot provide. Wood was everywhere in daily living, in furniture, doors, shelves, and structural elements. Yet it almost always rots away, leaving us to guess at details. Preserved wooden pieces can reveal joinery techniques, tool marks, and practical design choices that show how craftspeople worked. You can learn how a hinge was fitted, how a panel was framed, and how storage was built to fit real spaces. These details make Roman craftsmanship feel hands-on and immediate. They also change how you imagine interiors. A room is not only masonry and plaster. It is also the warmth of wood, the creak of a cabinet, and the everyday convenience of a well-made shelf. Finds like these remind you that the ancient world was not only durable materials surviving by chance. It was also a world of perishable skill, briefly rescued from disappearance. Raised stepping stones let pedestrians cross muddy streets during storms. These stones are one of the smartest pieces of street design you can see with your own eyes. They rise like a line of small islands, set at intervals that match a human stride. In bad weather, the street could become a messy channel of water, grit, and waste, especially when traffic churned it up. The stones offered a dry route across, and they also forced carts to slow as they approached crossings. Their spacing hints at wheel widths too. If a cart could not pass between them, then that street was not meant for heavy vehicles. That means the stones were doing two jobs at once. They helped people stay clean, and they controlled movement through busy intersections. When you notice the worn edges, you are looking at the pressure of countless footsteps. It is a small design choice that quietly reveals how a city learned to take care of itself. Deep wheel ruts show where carts repeatedly ground into stone. In Pompeii, the street surface keeps a record of traffic the way a riverbed keeps a record of water. Some ruts are shallow, while others bite deeply into the stone, carved by wheels that followed the same lines day after day. That pattern suggests habit and necessity. Deliveries did not wander wherever drivers pleased. They followed reliable routes between gates, shops, markets, and storage areas. Ruts also tell you about weight. A lightly loaded cart leaves little trace. A cart stacked with amphorae, grain, or building materials presses hard, especially when the ground is damp and the wheels slide before they grip. At junctions, the grooves can twist and split, like a decision point written into rock. You can almost imagine the sound: wood creaking, hooves clicking, and a driver calling out warnings as the cart squeezes past a crowd. Painted election slogans covered walls, begging neighbors for votes. Politics in Pompeii was not distant or abstract. It was right there on the street, painted large enough to catch the eye as you walked to buy bread or meet a friend. Supporters promoted candidates for local offices, and the messages often leaned on reputation. They might praise honesty, competence, or generosity, because those traits mattered when officials managed markets, public works, and local order. Sometimes the slogans reveal networks of influence. A group, a trade, or a neighborhood might endorse a name, and that endorsement was meant to carry weight. The war became a public argument, refreshed and repainted as campaigns heated up. You can picture the painters working at night with lamps, or at dawn before the city stirred. These slogans are exciting, because they make the ancient world feel politically familiar. People wanted power, wanted recognition, and wanted their community to believe in their choice. Many shopfronts opened directly onto the street, like ancient storefronts today. Pompeii's streets were not lined with blank walls. They were lined with open mouths of business, each one inviting attention. A shop could be a single room with a wide opening and a counter set just inside to display goods. Some had back rooms for storage. Others had stairways leading to living quarters above, which meant work and home were tightly stitched together. You can imagine the daily rhythm. A shutter lifts. A vendor arranges items. A neighbor stops to talk while passing coins across the threshold. Because so many businesses faced the street, commerce blended with gossip and social life. It also meant customers could compare options quickly, because competition sat door to door. Even the wear at the entrance matters. Threshold stones are smoothed by countless steps, and that smoothness is proof of repetition. It shows that the city's economy lived at street level, eye level, and hand to hand. Thermopylae served hot food and drinks, using embedded jars as counters. These were the fast food places of the Roman street, built for people who needed a quick meal without a long sit-down. A thermopolium usually had a masonry counter facing the road, and the counter held round openings for large jars. Those jars kept prepared foods and drinks close at hand, so a server could scoop, pour, and move the line along. The experience was public. You ordered while standing, and you ate near the street, surrounded by noise and movement. That matters because it hints at how many people did not cook elaborate meals at home, whether by choice or by space. It also suggests a city where time was valuable. Work, errands, and social life competed for attention. The thermopolium turned eating into something flexible and social. When you stand at one of these counters today, you can almost feel the press of shoulders and the impatience of hunger. Some counter jars still held traces of wine, beans, and stews. The jars set into counters were not empty props. They were working containers, and science can sometimes detect what once soaked into their walls. That means a simple jar can become a menu. Wine appears often, since it was a daily drink for many people, sometimes flavored or mixed. Beans and grains hint at hearty dishes, meant to satisfy, not impress. Stews suggest slow cooking that could stretch ingredients and serve many customers. What makes this thrilling is the bridge it builds between chemistry and imagination. You are not guessing blindly about ancient meals. You are following physical evidence left behind by liquids, oils, and residues. It also reveals habits of taste. Strong sauces, preserved foods, and warm dishes made sense in a bustling city. People wanted energy, comfort, and something familiar in their hands. A jar's hidden traces can turn a ruined counter into a living scene of lunch, chatter, and everyday hunger. Public fountains supplied constant water, fed by a long aqueduct system. In Pompeii, fountains were not decorative extras. They were part of the city's daily heartbeat, spaced through neighborhoods so people could collect water without crossing the whole town. That made them social points as well as practical ones. You could meet someone while filling a jar, hear news, or watch the street pass by. Many fountains were built with recognizable designs, and some featured carved faces or distinctive stonework that made them easy landmarks. Their location also shows what the city prioritized. A fountain near busy streets served crowds. One tucked into a quieter area served local residents. Maintaining them required planning and public authority, because clean water is never accidental. When you picture Pompeii on an ordinary morning, fountains belong in the scene. You hear splashing, you see people queuing, and you notice how essential shared infrastructure can feel when it works. It is a reminder that Roman urban life depended on systems, not just stone buildings. Lead pipes carried water, and stamped markings named officials and owners. Pipes in Pompeii were not anonymous pieces of metal. Many carried stamps that identified a maker, an administrator, or the person who held rights to that supply. That tiny detail opens a door into how power worked. Water was precious, and access could reflect status, influence, and legal arrangements. A stamped pipe is like a signature on a contract, pressed into material that could outlast its paperwork. It also helped track responsibility. If a section failed, if someone diverted flow, or if a dispute arose, markings could point to who controlled what. There is also a quiet irony. Lead is durable and easy to shape, which made it appealing for plumbing, even though modern knowledge recognizes its risks. In Pompeii, the pipes show technical skill and bureaucratic order side by side. They remind you that a city is not only built by masons. It is managed by records, permissions, and the politics of daily necessities. A central water tower helped regulate pressure across different neighborhoods. Imagine a city where water arrives with force in some places and trickles in others. Pressure can make or break a distribution system, especially when multiple areas need reliable flow at the same time. In Pompeii, a central water tower acted like a hub that could steady the network. It received water, split it, and helped control how it moved onward, so that fountains, baths, and private connections could function without constant chaos. This kind of structure is exciting because it shows a sophisticated understanding of urban engineering, even without modern pumps and sensors. It also tells you something about priorities. The city had to decide what received water first when demand rose. Those decisions were political as well as practical. When you look at the remains of the tower, you are looking at more than stone and channels. You are looking at the nerve center of comfort, hygiene, and public life, all balanced through careful control. Bathhouses offered hot, warm, and cold rooms in a social ritual. To step into a Roman bath was to enter a daily world with its own rhythm and etiquette. You arrived dusty from the street and you left feeling renewed, yet the bath was never only about cleanliness. It was a meeting place where news traveled faster than messengers, where business could be discussed without a desk, and where friendships were tested through joking and debate. The sequence of rooms mattered. People eased from heat to comfort to cold, letting the body adjust in stages, and the building guided that movement like a carefully planned journey. Attendants worked in the background, keeping spaces functioning while visitors focused on conversation and relaxation. In Pompeii, the surviving bath complexes let you sense that shared routine, because the layout still invites you to imagine voices echoing off stone, water splashing, and time slowing for a while. Floor heating worked through underfloor pillars, channeling hot air beneath tiles. The warmth in many bathrooms did not come from a simple hearth in the corner. It came from a clever hidden space under the floor, where hundreds of small pillars held up stone slabs like a raised platform. A furnace fed hot air into that underfloor cavity, and the heat then spread upward through the tiles, turning the room into a controlled climate. It is easy to picture this as luxury, yet it is also a triumph of practical design. Builders had to plan airflow, support weight, and choose materials that could handle repeated heating without cracking. Workers also had to keep it running, feeding fuel, clearing ash, and monitoring heat so rooms stayed comfortable rather than dangerous. When you stand over those little pillars, you are looking at an ancient technology that feels surprisingly modern in spirit. It is engineering built for human comfort, not only for survival. Bath walls were often painted because beauty mattered even in steam. A bathhouse could have been bare and purely functional, yet Pompeii shows that public pleasure spaces were expected to look good. Painted walls turned damp rooms into environments with mood and meaning. Some designs created the feeling of open gardens or elegant architecture, which made enclosed spaces feel wider and calmer. Color also carried status. A well-decorated bath announced investment, care, and civic pride, because the building served a whole community. Think of what that implies. People did not only want hot water and a place to wash. They wanted an atmosphere, a sense that daily routines could still feel refined. Paint in a steamy room also demanded maintenance, which means someone kept returning to refresh what time would fade. That attention to appearance is revealing. It suggests that the Romans saw comfort as part of public life, and they were willing to spend money to make ordinary moments feel elevated. Stridules scraped oil and sweat, showing hygiene relied on tools. Roman bathing often began with oil rather than soap. People rubbed oil onto skin, then used a curved metal tool called a stridule to scrape away sweat, dust, and the oily layer itself. It was a physical, almost ritual motion, and it left behind a mixture that had to be rinsed away. The tool could be personal, carried like a cherished item, or it could be provided by attendants depending on the setting. Stridules connect hygiene with daily identity because they show that cleanliness was not passive. It was something you did with technique and routine. They also hint at the sensory world of the baths. You can imagine the shine of oil, the sound of scraping, and the quick conversations continuing while someone tended to their own body. Finding these tools in Pompeii makes the ancient world feel close, because the object is simple and recognizable. It is a reminder that the past handled the same human needs, but with its own methods. Pompeii's forum acted as marketplace, courtroom, and civic stage. The forum was the city's public heart, and it functioned like a space where everything important could happen within sight of everyone else. On one day, it might feel like an open market, with deals made through hand gestures and loud persuasion. On another day, it could become a place of judgment, with disputes aired in public and reputations at stake. It was also the stage for ceremonies and announcements, where officials demonstrated authority through visibility. That mix made the forum powerful because it forced civic life into shared space. You could not pretend politics was distant when it happened in the same square where you bought goods and met friends. In Pompeii, the forum's remains show how buildings clustered around it to support those roles, creating a center that pulled people in. Standing there, you can picture a city continually watching itself, celebrating itself, and arguing with itself, all in one place. A grand basilica hosted business and law, not religious services. Today, the word basilica often suggests a church, yet in Roman cities it meant something different. It was a large public hall designed for meetings, contracts, and legal proceedings. In Pompeii, the basilica offered shelter from sun and rain, while serious matters unfolded. Merchants could finalize deals, creditors could press claims, and officials could hear cases that affected livelihoods. The building's size mattered because it projected stability. A spacious hall with ordered columns and a clear focal point told citizens that the city had structure, rules, and authority. It also shaped behavior. A case argued in a public hall carries a different weight than a private discussion, because an audience changes how people speak and what they dare to admit. When you imagine the basilica in use, you can hear a layered soundscape. You hear footsteps, murmurs, sharp exchanges, and the sudden hush when an official began to speak. It is the architecture of civic pressure, built in stone. Temples honored many gods, showing religion was diverse and practical. Religion in Pompeii was not a single uniform practice, and it was not only about abstract belief. It was woven into daily concerns like health, luck, safe travel, and household security. Temples and shrines could honor different deities, and each god carried a set of expectations and responsibilities. People might visit one place for protection in business, another for family hopes, and another for gratitude after a safe return. This variety mattered because it created a spiritual landscape as busy as the marketplace. Public festivals, processions, and sacrifices tied communities together, while private offerings allowed individuals to speak to the divine in a more personal pico way. The city's temple remains show that devotion was also civic. Funding and decoration expressed status, and worship reinforced social bonds. Pompeii makes this visible because sacred spaces sit close to everyday streets, reminding you that ancient life did not separate the practical from the particular. Sacred. It blended them. The Temple of Isis drew worshippers from many backgrounds and ages. Among Pompeii's sacred places, the temple dedicated to Isis stands out because it reflects how connected the Roman world had become. Isis originated in Egyptian tradition, yet her worship spread widely through the Mediterranean, offering rituals that felt personal and emotionally rich. In Pompeii, the temple's popularity suggests that people were open to spiritual paths beyond local tradition, and that a foreign goddess could become a familiar presence in an Italian city. Worship here may have appealed to freed people, traders, and families seeking protection, since Isis was linked with healing, navigation, and renewal. The temple complex also included spaces for ceremonies, which indicates that devotion could involve performance, sound, and shared participation. When you imagine a festival day, you can picture bright clothing, offerings carried forward, and the sense of stepping into something older and wider than the city itself. The temple tells a story of cultural mixing, not only in goods and travel, but in hope. Sacred offerings included miniature objects, thanking deities for answered prayers. Offerings were often small, yet they carried enormous emotional weight. People left gifts to say thank you, to ask for help, or to mark a vow they wanted to keep. Some offerings were miniature body parts in clay or metal, given in hopes of healing a specific injury or illness. Others were tiny objects that symbolized a wish, a safe journey, or a change in fortune. What makes these offerings so moving is that they turn religion into a record of personal needs. A grand temple can feel distant, but a small gift is intimate. It suggests a single person standing close to an altar, hoping to be heard. In Pompeii, these objects also show the economy of devotion, because not everyone could afford expensive sacrifice. Miniatures offered a way to participate without wealth, and they created a physical archive of gratitude and fear. Each one is a quiet message left in the open, meant for a god, and now read by us. Priests and patrons shaped public religion through money, festivals, and status. Public worship did not run itself. It required organization, funding, and people who could coordinate ceremonies that the city would recognize as legitimate. Priests performed rituals, maintained sacred spaces, and supervised the calendar of festivals. Patrons often supplied money for buildings, repairs, decorations, or public feasts, and the generosity was rarely anonymous. Support could raise a family's standing and link their name to the favor of a deity. Festivals, in turn, became moments when religion and civic identity fused. Streets could fill with spectators, music could pull attention toward a temple, and the community could experience itself as a unified group, at least for a while. This relationship also created tension. If a patron fell from favor, their public gifts still stood in stone and paint. Pompeii preserves that system of influence because inscriptions and spaces reveal how devotion, reputation, and politics could reinforce each other. It was not only about faith. It was about visibility, belonging, and power expressed in sacred form. Frescoes show myth scenes, but also gardens, food, and daily pleasures. Step into a Pompeian room and the walls can feel like open windows. Some scenes bring gods and heroes into a dining space, turning an ordinary meal into theatre. Other paintings choose something simpler and almost more surprising. They show bowls of fruit, hanging game, bread, and fish laid out with pride. They show birds perched in painted shrubs and courtyards that look deeper than the real room. These images were not only decoration. They were conversation starters, status symbols, and mood setters. A host could signal education through mythology, or signal generosity through painted abundance. Even small rooms could feel larger, richer, and more alive. Many frescoes also reveal humor and taste, because artists included playful details that reward a second look. When you realize these walls once surrounded real voices and real meals, the ancient world stops feeling distant and starts feeling inhabited. Some paintings used illusionistic architecture, making small rooms feel vast. Roman painters understood a powerful trick. They could turn a flat wall into a convincing stage set. Painted columns appeared to stand in front of you. Painted balconies seem to open onto sky. Painted doorways hint at rooms that do not exist, and your brain almost accepts the invitation to step through. This mattered in a crowded city where many interiors were compact and dark. Illusion made space feel generous. It also made the home feel cultured, because perspective effects were a kind of visual sophistication. The best examples play with depth in layers, with foreground details that feel close, middle spaces that feel walkable, and distant views that fade as if through air. You can imagine a visitor pausing in surprise, then leaning in to test what is real. That moment of delight was part of the point. These rooms were built to impress, and they used art to expand the boundaries of everyday life. Mosaic floors turned ordinary footsteps into art, one stone at a time. Look down in Pompeii, and you often find patience made visible. A mosaic is built from countless tiny pieces set with care, chosen for color, shape, and shine. Some floors show geometric patterns that guide the eye like music. Others show animals, masks, waves, or scenes, but hint at the owner's interests. Mosaics were durable, yet they were also personal. A threshold design could announce welcome, warning, or pride. A dining room floor could create a sense of elegance under every chair. What makes mosaics so captivating is how physical they are. People walked on them every day. Children ran across them. Spilled wine was wiped from them. Over time, footsteps polished some areas and softened others, and that wear becomes part of the story. These floors were not distant art. They were lived with. They carried beauty into the most ordinary movement, and they still carry it now. Doorway symbols sometimes advertised services. A Pompeian street was a place of quick signals. Not everyone could read, and not everyone had time to stop for explanations. Symbols near doorways could do the work of a signboard. A passerby could learn what was offered inside with a glance, whether that meant a place to rest, a drink, or something more private. These marks also hint at how open the city could be about certain businesses. Pleasure, travel, and commerce shared the same sidewalks. There was no separate district where everything discreetly hid. The street itself was a marketplace of needs. These symbols are fascinating because they show communication without speeches. They also show how a city guides strangers. If you arrive from the road with coins in your pocket and no local knowledge, the walls could still direct you. In Pompeii, a doorway could be both an entrance and an advertisement, and the message could be as simple as a carved image. Wealthy homes centered on atriums, open roofs, and indoor pools. A Roman home could be designed as a sequence of reveals. You entered from a noisy street into a central hall that felt like a pause in the city's breath. An opening in the roof let light fall into the space, and rain could drop into a shallow indoor basin. That basin was not only practical, it created sound, reflection, and a sense of coolness. Visitors would be received here, and the household's identity would be on display. Floors, wall paintings, and carefully placed objects could signal taste and status within seconds. Beyond the atrium, rooms might open toward gardens or dining spaces, and the house could unfold like a private world. This design also controlled access. Public-facing areas could be impressive, while more private spaces stayed deeper inside. The atrium was the hinge between street life and domestic life. It transformed a front door into a social performance, and it did so with architecture rather than words. Rainwater collected in an atrium basin, then flowed into storage cisterns. This is the kind of detail that makes Pompeii feel brilliantly practical. The opening in the roof was not a flaw. It was part of a water plan. Rain fell into a basin, then drained into a cistern beneath the house. That cistern could store water for cooking, cleaning, and other daily needs, especially when public supply was limited or unreliable. The system required careful sealing and thoughtful placement. You do not want stored water seeping away, and you do not want dirty runoff contaminating it. Homes that used this method turned weather into security. A good storm meant the household was stocked. Even better, the design made water collection a quiet background process. No one had to rush outside with jars. The building did it for you. This gives you a new way to imagine Roman domestic life. Households were not only consuming resources, they were harvesting them. In Pompeii, architecture helped families manage risk, and it did so with a simple path for every raindrop. Household shrines honored protective spirits, blending faith with routine. In many homes, a small shrine stood where daily life could not avoid it. It might be in a kitchen area, near a courtyard, or along a passage that family members crossed again and again. The shrine often held painted figures or small statues, and it served as a focus for regular acts of respect. These were not grand ceremonies with crowds. They were small moments, like lighting a lamp, offering a pinch of food, or speaking a short request for protection. The spirits honored here were tied to household well-being, and the practice made faith feel close rather than distant. What is especially compelling is how this devotion sat beside ordinary objects. A sacred corner could exist a few steps from a cooking pot or a storage jar. That proximity tells you something about mindset. The Romans did not always separate religion into special buildings and special days. They invited it into routine. Pompeii preserves that invitation, which makes ancient belief feel intimate and everyday. Kitchens were smoky and compact, built for charcoal braziers and pots. The kitchen is where Pompeii becomes most human. Many cooking spaces were small, with soot stains that still cling to walls. Heat came from braziers and built hearths, and smoke had to find its way out through openings that were not always generous. Pots hung, leaned, or nested together, ready for whatever the day demanded. Food preparation could happen quickly, because people were busy. It could also take time, because stews and grains need patience. What makes these kitchens so fascinating is how much they reveal without grand artifacts. You see the practical layout, the proximity of storage, and the marks of repeated fire. You can imagine the sound of scraping, chopping, and stirring, and the smell of charcoal and herbs clinging to clothing. A kitchen also tells you about labor. Someone did this work every day, often without recognition. Pompeii allows that unseen daily effort to surface, and it makes the city feel lived in rather than displayed. Carbonized figs and nuts reveal snacks, trade links, and seasonal habits. The smallest food remains can tell the biggest stories, because snacks travel where formal meals do not. In Pompeii, carbonized figs and nuts hint at what people ate between tasks and what they carried on the move. Figs could be dried for storage, which made them a portable sweetness that lasted beyond harvest time. Nuts offered dense energy, easy to portion and easy to share. Their presence also points outward, because these foods connect the city to farms, orchards, and regional markets that fed it. A snack is never only a snack. It reflects work rhythms, family habits, and even childhood, since small treats often belong to small hands. When you picture a Pompeian street, imagine someone pausing at a doorway with a handful of figs, then continuing on with sticky fingers and a full schedule. Food remains like these turn archaeology into everyday life, one bite at a time. Wine production left presses and amphorae, showing agriculture fed city wealth. Pompeii was a city, yet it was also tied tightly to the countryside that surrounded it. Vineyards and farms created the goods that kept money flowing, and wine was a major part of that story. Pressing areas reveal a process that was physical and planned. Grapes were crushed, juice was collected, and the work moved through stages that demanded tools, storage, and timing. Amphorae, the large clay containers used for transport, show that production was not only local consumption, it was part of trade. Each filled jar represented labor in the fields, labor in the press, and labor in shipping and selling. Wine also carried identity. Different producers could build reputations, and certain styles could become preferred by buyers. This matters because it reminds you that Pompeii's prosperity did not come only from shops and services inside the walls. It came from sunlight on vines, from harvest days, and from the steady conversion of crops into commerce. Fish sauce factories nearby made garum, an intensely popular Roman condiment. To understand Roman taste, you have to meet garum. It was a fermented fish sauce with a strong smell and a powerful flavor, and it was used the way many kitchens use salt or soy sauce today. Near Pompeii, production sites included vats where fish and salt were left to transform over time. It was not glamorous work. It was hot, pungent, and messy. Yet the result was valuable enough to ship widely, which tells you how much people loved it. Garum could appear in sauces, stews, and even simple dishes that needed a punch of savory depth. It also reflects a clever economy. Fish parts that might otherwise be discarded became a product people paid for. That is a kind of culinary recycling, and it is surprisingly modern in spirit. When you imagine Pompeii's meals, do not picture bland bread alone. Picture food seasoned with something bold, prized, and unmistakable. Amphora stamps tracked producers, turning pottery into a business label. An amphora is a container, yet in Pompeii, it could also be a document. Stamps and markings on these clay jars helped identify who made them, who filled them, or where they were meant to go. That matters because trade creates problems. Goods move through many hands, and trust has to be built into the system. A stamp could act like a brand, and it could protect reputation. If a shipment arrived spoiled or diluted, buyers could point to a name. If a product was excellent, the same name could earn future sales. These markings also show how organized commerce had become. Someone had to standardize the practice, and someone had to care enough about accountability to press a label into wet clay. When you hold that idea in mind, the ancient world shifts. Pompeii was not only a place of colorful walls and dramatic ruins. It was a place of logistics, quality control, and quiet competition between producers who wanted to be remembered. Bakers used rotary mills, often powered by donkeys walking in circles. Before flour became a bag you grabbed from a shelf, it was a daily transformation of grain into something usable. In Pompeii, Bakeries sometimes used large rotary mills shaped like tall stone cones. Grain was poured in, and the upper stone turned against the lower, crushing kernels into flour through steady friction. To keep that turning motion going for hours, animals could be harnessed to push the mechanism in a circle. It is an image that sticks, because it is both ordinary and relentless. A donkey walks. The stone turns. Flour falls. The same path is traced again and again, and a whole neighborhood's bread depends on that repetition. This also reveals scale. These were not tiny household mortars. They were production tools designed to feed many people every day. When you picture the city waking up, imagine the first heat of ovens rising, and also the slow creak of stone mills beginning their rotation. Bread starts with a circle. Some bread loaves were pre-sliced, proving convenience foods are ancient. It is easy to assume the past was always slower and more labor-intensive, yet Pompeii keeps surprising us. Some loaves show clear division lines, cut or scored before baking so they could be pulled apart into portions. That simple choice changes how you imagine a meal. It suggests sharing around a table or quick serving in a busy setting, when no one wanted to wrestle with a knife. It also hints at planning. A baker who pre-portions bread is thinking about customers, about speed, and about consistency. It is an early version of making life easier for the buyer. Pre-slicing also supports the idea of bread as a daily staple, bought often and eaten quickly, not treated as a rare luxury. Picture someone leaving a shop with a warm loaf already divided into neat segments. It is practical. It is thoughtful. It is a small design choice that makes the Roman world feel unexpectedly familiar, because convenience is not a modern invention. It is a human one. Street shrines sat at corners, blessing crossroads where accidents happened. Crossroads are where a city feels most alive and most unpredictable. Carts turn, people hurry, and strangers collide in narrow space. In Pompeii, small shrines placed at street corners suggest a desire to bring protection into the places where trouble could arrive without warning. These were not grand temples with distant steps. They were close enough to touch as you passed. A person could pause, leave a small offering, or speak a quick request for safety before continuing on. The location tells you what people worried about. They worried about falls, disputes, bad luck, and sudden misfortune that could flare up in busy intersections. The shrines also shaped the street's atmosphere. They gave corners a sense of watchfulness, as if the neighborhood had guardians on duty. Imagine walking home after dark with a small lamp, turning a corner, and seeing a painted sacred niche catching the light. Even a hardened city feels different when it believes someone is listening at the crossroads. Inns offered beds, wine, and gossip, creating networks of travelers. An inn is more than a place to sleep. It is a hub where stories arrive and depart, carried by tired voices and dusty shoes. In Pompeii, inns and lodging spaces remind us that the city was connected to roads, ports, and trade routes that brought in strangers. A traveler might arrive with news from another town, with rumors about politics, or with prices and opportunities that locals wanted to hear. In return, that traveler could learn which streets were safe, which merchants were honest, and what events were coming. Inns also reveal a practical side of movement. Not everyone had friends in every town, and not everyone could afford high-status hospitality. A paid bed and a cup of wine could be enough to keep a journey going. Picture the common room at evening. Someone complains about road conditions. Someone boasts about a deal. Someone listens carefully, because gossip can be as valuable as currency. Pompeii's inns hint at a living web of travel, where the city was never fully closed to the outside world. Gambling boards were scratched into stone, inviting quick games in public. Wherever people wait, they invent ways to pass the time. In Pompeii, game boards scratched into steps and pavements turned public space into a casual gaming table. You did not need to book a room or buy a special board. The city itself could become the surface for competition. That suggests confidence and familiarity. Friends, co-workers or strangers could gather around a marked stone, set down pieces, and begin. The scratched lines also show that play was not confined to formal entertainment buildings. It lived in the gaps between errands, in the minutes before a meeting, and in the pauses of a workday. These games were social. They created small crowds and small rivalries, and they offered a chance to win bragging rights even when money was not involved. Imagine two players leaning in, arguing over a move, and laughing when the outcome flips. A board carved into stone is an ancient reminder that public life is not only duty. It is also play, woven into the street. Dice and counters survived, showing leisure mattered in every class. Small objects can carry big emotion, and dice are a perfect example. They fit in a pocket, they travel easily, and they can turn boredom into suspense in seconds. In Pompeii, dice and gaming counters show that leisure was not a rare privilege. It was something people made time for, whether in a tavern, at home, or near a street corner. Dice also bring out personality. Some players chase risk, while others prefer cautious strategy, and you can imagine arguments over fairness or luck. The existence of counters hints at multiple game types, not just simple throws, and that variety suggests a culture that enjoyed structured play. There is also an edge of danger, because gambling can tempt people into bad decisions. That tension makes these objects more than toys. They are reminders that Romans sought excitement, control, and surprise, just like we do. When you picture a Pompeian evening, do not picture only solemn ruins. Picture laughter, frustration, and the clatter of dice on a tabletop. One house displayed a "Beware of the dog" mosaic at the entrance. That warning was not a joke, and it was not only decoration. A visitor crossing the threshold would see a dog pictured with sharp attention and a clear message that the house was protected. It is an early example of a home announcing boundaries before a single word is spoken. The mosaic also reveals pride. Someone paid skilled workers to set those tiny stones, so the image would greet every guest, client, and stranger at the door. It tells you that security mattered and that a household wanted to be taken seriously. The dog image works on two levels at once. It discourages trouble and it performs status, because only a confident home advertises its guard. When you imagine sandals stepping over that mosaic, you can hear the shift in tone. Conversation softens, posture straightens, and a casual visit becomes a respectful one. Another house held a chained dog's remains, a tragic detail of disaster. In the ruins, one discovery hits with quiet force. A dog was found where it could not escape, still near its chain. This is not a grand monument or a famous painting. It is a single life caught in the mechanics of an ordinary day. The chain tells a practical story first. Homes used animals to guard property, and restraint was part of that system. Then the eruption arrives, and the same chain becomes a trap. The tragedy is sharpened by how familiar it feels, because people still love pets, still rely on them, and still face emergencies where choices vanish too fast. This find also changes how you picture the city's final hours. It was not only humans making decisions. Animals were reacting too, confused by ashfall, noise, and darkness. The remains are a hard reminder that disasters harm the dependent first, and that small domestic routines can suddenly carry the weight of life and death. Garden courtyards used painted birds and plants to extend real greenery, A Pompeian garden was often designed to feel larger than it was. Real shrubs and flowers could be arranged around a courtyard, while the walls behind them were painted with even more foliage, birds, and imagined landscapes. The effect could be astonishing. A narrow space becomes a lush retreat, and the eye is invited to wander beyond the boundary of stone. This tells you something about what people wanted from home. They wanted relief from crowded streets. They wanted the sense of nature close at hand, even when land was limited. Painted gardens also created a kind of permanent season. Even if real plants wilted, the walls kept blooming. In some houses, fountains and small channels added sound, so the space felt alive as well as beautiful. When you picture an evening meal nearby, you can almost feel the coolness of shade and the illusion of open air, built from pigment and care. Some homes kept small dogs, reflecting companionship beyond utility. Not every dog in Pompeii was a guard. Evidence from art and remains suggests that some were kept as companions, small enough to share indoor space and to follow people through rooms. This matters because it reveals tenderness alongside practicality. A companion animal changes how a household feels. It becomes a source of comfort, play, and routine, not only protection. You can imagine a small dog sleeping near a doorway, then springing up at the sound of familiar footsteps. In social terms, pets also signal identity. A well-cared-for dog suggests leisure, affection, and the ability to spare resources. It also suggests an emotional life that historians often struggle to capture. Letters and speeches rarely pause to describe daily affection, but a pet implies it without explanation. When you stand in these houses today, it is easy to think only of walls and artifacts. The presence of small dogs invites you to hear a softer soundtrack, paws on stone, excited yips, and the easy laughter that follows. Animal bones showed diets included pork, fish, goat, and chicken. Food history is not only found in paintings and jars. It is also found in what people threw away. Bones recovered from Pompeii reveal the kinds of meat that ended up on tables, in stews, and at street counters. Pork points to backyard husbandry and local supply. Goat suggests hardy animals that fit rural landscapes and that could provide both meat and milk. Chicken hints at small-scale household keeping, where eggs and occasional meals came from the same bird. Fish brings in another layer. It connects the diet to coastal access and to preserved products that traveled inland. What makes this evidence exciting is how it counters the idea of a single Roman diet. People ate according to price, season, and opportunity. Cuts varied, portions varied, and meals could be plain or celebratory. These bones make the ancient city feel fed rather than displayed. They also remind you that every society is built on invisible daily decisions about what to cook, what to share, and what to save for tomorrow. Latrines were communal, turning private needs into public routine. A Roman toilet could be a row of stone or wooden seats set side by side, with no partitions and no pretense of privacy. That arrangement sounds shocking now, yet it tells you how different social expectations can be. In Pompeii, these spaces were part of everyday architecture, often placed near baths or busy areas where people already gathered. The experience could be practical and strangely social. You could hear conversation continue, because life did not pause for bodily needs. This also reveals trust in routine systems, because communal seating only works if water is flowing and waste is carried away. It is not glamorous history, yet it is deeply informative. It shows that city life demanded shared solutions for shared problems. It also reminds you that the past was not constantly solemn. People laughed, complained, and told stories in every setting. Even in a latrine, the city remained a community, shoulder to shoulder, dealing with the most human realities in the most public way. Sponges on sticks likely served as toilet tools, rinsed in water channels. The Romans relied on simple tools for hygiene, and one of the strangest to modern ears is the sponge attached to a handle. In many toilets, a shallow channel of water ran in front of the seating, and that water could be used to rinse such tools between uses. The object itself opens a vivid window into daily practices that are rarely described in polite histories. It also shows a practical mindset. A handle keeps the hand at distance, and a sponge can be cleaned, reused, and replaced when needed. This was not a disposable culture, and many everyday items were designed to last. The presence of these tools also implies maintenance. Someone had to keep water moving, keep supplies stocked, and keep spaces usable. It is easy to focus on art and architecture, yet an ancient city survives only when these quiet systems work. Thinking about this tool can be uncomfortable, which is exactly why it is valuable. It forces you to meet the past as it truly was, complete and unfiltered. Public toilets connected to drainage, proving sanitation engineering was advanced. A public toilet is only tolerable if the city can move waste away reliably. In Pompeii, toilets were often linked into larger drainage systems, which suggests planning beyond the level of a single building. Channels, slopes, and outlets had to be arranged so water could carry waste along, rather than letting it pool. This kind of infrastructure is easy to miss because it hides under feet, yet it shapes quality of life as much as temples do. When it works, disease risk can drop, streets can be cleaner, and crowded neighborhoods can function without constant foulness. The engineering also had a social impact. It allowed shared spaces to exist, and it supported the rhythm of baths, markets, and travel without collapse into filth. Thinking about drains may not sound romantic, yet it is one of the most impressive signs of a city taking itself seriously. Pompeii shows that the Romans were willing to invest in unseen systems because they understood that civic comfort depends on what happens underground as much as what rises above it. Street bars sold cheap wine and sometimes watered it down. A busy city creates a demand for fast refreshment, and Pompeii met it with street bars that served quick drinks to people on the move. Not everyone wanted a formal meal. Sometimes you wanted a cup, a brief pause, and a return to work. Cheap wine was common, and some sellers stretched supplies by mixing it with water, which could protect profits and meet customer expectations for a lighter drink. This practice also hints at a world of trust and suspicion. Regulars might know which bar was honest and which was stingy. A traveler might learn the hard way. These bars were also social theaters. People traded news, argued, flirted, and watched the street while holding a simple cup. The setting mattered. A counter facing the road made the city itself part of the experience, with strangers passing close enough to overhear. When you imagine Pompeii at midday, picture the heat, the dust, and the relief of shade at a bar counter, where commerce and conversation mixed as easily as wine and creth. Water, the famous brothel had number grooms, guiding customers through a system. Inside one well-known building, the layout feels designed for efficiency rather than romance. Small rooms line a corridor, each one with a built-in stone bed. Above or near many doorways, numbers were painted or carved. That numbering acted like a simple wayfinding system in a busy place. It helped visitors remember where they had been, and it helped workers manage a steady flow of customers. A space also reveals how transactional the experience could be. The rooms are compact and practical. Privacy exists, yet it is limited. You can imagine footsteps in the corridor, quick negotiations, and the constant awareness of others nearby. What makes this site so gripping is its clarity. It shows a side of Roman life that is often discussed in general terms, then quickly pushed aside. Here it is architectural. It is organized. It is part of the city, not hidden outside it. The building forces you to confront how ordinary and how structured this industry could be. Erotic wall paintings acted like menus, showing choices without words. In certain spaces, paintings served a direct purpose. They communicated options quickly in a world where language could be a barrier and where discretion might matter less than clarity. The images are explicit, yet their role was practical. They signaled services in a visual shorthand that required no reading and no lengthy conversation. That function also changes how you interpret them. These paintings were not necessarily personal fantasies put on display. They were commercial communication. That is a startling thought, because it makes the ancient world feel familiar in a modern way. Businesses still use pictures to guide choices and still rely on quick recognition. At the same time, the art style matters. The figures are often composed with care, not sketched as crude symbols. That suggests skilled painters were hired for this work, which in turn suggests money and demand. Pompeii preserves the evidence of that demand in pigment and plaster. It is social history you can see, and it refuses to be abstract. Drinking cups and jugs survived, including fine glass for the wealthy. Pompeii preserved the act of drinking in its full range, from everyday pottery to delicate glassware that catches light like a jewel. Ordinary cups show what most people handle daily, sturdy forms meant to survive knocks and busy hands. More refined vessels reveal a different world, where hosting mattered and where the table became a display of taste. Fine glass was not only pretty. It demonstrated access to skilled craftsmanship and trade networks that could deliver fragile luxury intact. Jugs and pitchers also show ritual and routine. Someone poured for guests. Someone measured. Someone topped up cups at the right moment to keep conversation flowing. These objects bring you close to the social life of the city, because drinking is rarely solitary in such settings. It is tied to celebration, negotiation, and relaxation after long work. When you picture a Roman dinner, the surviving vessels let you hear the clink of cups and the soft splash of pouring, and they make the past feel immediate rather than distant. Coins found in pockets show what people carried when panic struck. Some victims were discovered with coins still on their bodies, and that tiny detail can feel louder than any mural. Money in a pocket is a snapshot of intention. It suggests someone expected to buy passage, food, or shelter, even while the sky was falling. A few coins might mean a quick errand that turned into catastrophe. A heavier handful might mean a last-second grab for survival, because cash can become a lifeline when markets collapse into chaos. Coins also identify time and place, since emperors and mints changed over the years. That helps archaeologists anchor a moment that might otherwise blur into legend. Most of all, coins make the tragedy personal. You can picture a hand closing around metal, a glance toward the street, and the belief that life would continue somewhere else, if only they could reach it. Jewelry caches suggest some residents tried to flee with their savings. In a few places, archaeologists found collections of jewelry hidden or gathered together, and the pattern suggests hurried choices. When danger rises fast, people do not pack neatly. They reach for what holds value and meaning. Rings, bracelets, and chains can be both. They are portable wealth, and they are personal history worn on the skin. A cache might represent a family's attempt to secure its future, because gold and gems can cross borders when property cannot. Some hidden bundles may have been stashed with the hope of returning later, which adds another layer of heartbreak. The owner could not know the city would stay buried for centuries. These caches also show how people understood risk. They treated the eruption like a crisis that might pass, not like an ending. That mindset is deeply human. It turns Pompeii from a frozen ruin into a place of plans, hopes, and last-minute decisions. Pompeii's preserved doors and shutters hint at how homes controlled light. Light in an ancient city was precious, and it was also something people managed carefully. Doors, shutters, and interior openings shaped where daylight could reach and where shadows could provide privacy and coolness. A well-placed shutter could soften the glare of noon, and a closed door could turn a front room into a calmer space away from street noise. This matters because it reveals a subtle form of comfort engineering. Before electric bulbs, light was a daily negotiation between the sun's path and the home's layout. Shutters could also protect painted walls and valuable objects from weather and dust, since open streets carried grit into everything. The survival of door fittings and shutter traces invites you to imagine the city as a place of changing brightness. Morning light slants into an atrium. Midday brightness is filtered and controlled. Evening arrives, and oil lamps take over, turning spaces intimate and flickering. These small architectural choices shaped mood, routine, and even sleep. Carbonized furniture fragments show that even chairs and cradles once stood here. It is easy to picture Pompeii as bare rooms of stone, yet carbonized furniture fragments push back against that illusion. They remind you that houses were filled with objects that made life comfortable. Chairs supported tired bodies. Tables held meals and work. Cradles and small beds suggest children and the daily care that revolves around them. Even when only fragments survive, the fact of their presence is powerful. It tells you that the city was furnished and busy, not staged. It also highlights loss, because furniture is deeply tied to domestic identity. You arrange it to fit your routines and your relationships. A chair sits in a spot for a reason. A cradle stands where someone can reach it quickly in the night. When such items become carbonized traces, they become a kind of ghost inventory. They let you rebuild a mental picture of rooms that once felt warm, practical, and personal. Pompeii does not only preserve walls, it preserves the idea of living within them. Archaeologists found surgical tools, revealing practical medicine in a busy city. Inside Pompeii's ruins, medical instruments turn up with a surprising sense of purpose, as if the practitioner had simply stepped away. You find tools suited for cutting, probing, gripping, and extracting, and each one hints at a world where injuries and illness were constant companions. In a crowded city, accidents happened at workshops, on streets, and in arenas, so treatment was not rare. These tools also suggest specialization. A set kept together implies someone invested in skill, practice, and reputation. Medicine was not only superstition. It included hands-on procedures, careful cleaning, and the steady work of easing pain. Imagine a small room lit by an oil lamp, a patient trying to stay still, and a healer relying on touch and experience rather than machines. Finds like these make Pompeii feel startlingly modern in one way. People sought help. People paid for care. People hoped for relief, and some of them found it. Wall ads promoted gladiator fights, listing dates, names, and sponsors. Pompeii's walls could become a public bulletin board, and gladiator advertisements were written to stop you mid-step. They announced upcoming shows, named the fighters, and often highlighted what made the event worth your time. Sponsors mattered too, because putting on games was a way to display wealth and win admiration. An ad was part promise and part challenge. It promised spectacle, variety, and the thrill of seeing a famous name. It also challenged the city to show up and be counted among the crowd. What makes these ads so compelling is their confidence. They assume you care. They assume your neighbor cares. They treat entertainment as a civic occasion, not a private indulgence. Picture someone reading the paint aloud to friends, arguing about which fighter would win, then circling the day on a mental calendar. The wall becomes a voice. It sells excitement, and it reveals how anticipation moved through the streets long before the gates ever opened. Some gladiator graffiti praises favorites, like ancient sports fan chatter. Away from official ads, you find something even more revealing. Fans scratched quick lines that celebrate particular fighters, the way modern supporters chant names and trade opinions. This kind of writing is emotional rather than formal. It is about loyalty, excitement, and the urge to be part of a shared story. A favorite gladiator could become a local hero, admired for style, courage, or sheer persistence. The praise also implies memory. People watched fights, then carried the experience back into daily life, repeating it in taverns, workshops, and homes. Graffiti turns that talk into evidence. It shows that entertainment created community, because strangers could bond over a name on a wall. It also shows how fame could spread without newspapers or screens. Fame traveled by voice, by paint, and by scratched letters on plaster. When you read that praise, you can almost hear the city, excited and argumentative, reliving a match as if it happened yesterday. Helmets and armor remained show combat was organized, not chaotic brawling. Gladiator combat can sound like lawless violence, yet surviving equipment tells a different story. Helmets were designed with specific shapes and protections, which suggests sack rolls and recognized fighting styles. Shields, greaves, and arm guards were built to balance defense and spectacle, so a bout could be dramatic without ending instantly. This kind of gear requires planning. Someone trained fighters to use it. Someone maintained it between events. Someone understood how to pair opponents so a match had tension rather than randomness. Organization also implies rules, referees, and expectations from the crowd. People wanted a contest they could follow, not a confusing scramble. When you imagine a gladiator preparing, picture more than fear. Picture routine. Picture straps tightened, metal checked, and a practiced grip on a weapon that feels familiar in the hand. These remains also show the business side of spectacle. Equipment cost money, and a system that invests in gear expects returns. Pompeii preserves that system in iron and bronze, with every dent hinting at a moment of impact. The amphitheater hosted animal hunts, a brutal form of entertainment. Roman arenas offered more than fighter versus fighter. They also staged hunts that brought wild animals into a controlled space, turning danger into performance. The animals could be exotic, and their very presence signaled power, because capturing and transporting them required networks, money, and risk. For the crowd, the hunt was suspense, chaos, and spectacle rolled into one. For the animals, it was terror. That contrast is part of what makes this history hard to look away from. It forces you to face what a society chooses to celebrate. Hunts also shaped the mood of a show. They could open the day with shock and excitement, warming the crowd into a roar before later events. Imagine the arena floor prepared, handlers tense at the edges, and the sudden shift when a gate opens. The audience reacts as one body. Pompeii's amphitheater makes that scene imaginable, not as a distant myth, but as a scheduled event that real people attended and discussed afterward. Training grounds existed, proving gladiators lived within a professional system. Behind the spectacle was a daily routine that looked more like a demanding job than a spontaneous fight. Evidence for training spaces points to practice, discipline, and a life shaped by repetition. Gladiators needed strength, yes, but they also needed technique, timing, and endurance, and those do not appear by chance. Training grounds suggest instructors, sparring partners, and drills that taught fighters how to move with weapons and armor. They also suggest strict control. A trained fighter represented investment, and investments are protected through rules and supervision. This professional system changes the story. Gladiators were not only victims or villains. They were skilled performers in a dangerous career, with reputations that could rise and fall. Picture morning practice, the scrape of sandals, the rhythm of wooden training swords striking, and the silence afterward, when breath is all you can hear. Pompeii preserves hints of that hidden world, the world that existed long before the crowd arrived. Street shrines and paintings show fear of bad luck and charms against it. Pompeii's streets reveal a city that tried to manage uncertainty with symbols, offerings, and watchful rituals. Small shrines at corners and painted protective images suggest that people saw danger everywhere, in accidents, illness, envy, and sudden misfortune. These were not private anxieties kept behind doors. They were shared beliefs built into public space. A shrine at a crossroads could be a place to pause for a heartbeat, to ask for safety, or to show respect to forces you could not control. Protective paintings in homes did something similar, turning a wall into reassurance. This is fascinating because it makes the ancient world feel emotionally close. People wanted to feel protected. People worried about what could go wrong. They created routines that made fear manageable. The objects and images also reveal community, because shared rituals teach neighbors to see the same streets as meaningful. Pompeii does not only show what people built, it shows what they hoped would keep them safe. Phallic symbols were common, used as protection, not only provocation. To modernize, these symbols can seem shocking or comedic, yet in Pompeii they often carried a protective meaning. The image could function as an amulet against the evil eye, a way of pushing back against jealousy, curses, or bad fortune. That is why you might see such symbols in public places, near shops, or along routes where many people passed. The goal was not always to offend. The goal was to guard. This flips the emotional tone of the evidence. What looks like crude humor can also be anxious practicality, a charm placed where it might help. It also shows how symbols can change across cultures and time. Pompeii invites you to suspend modern assumptions and listen for older meanings. Imagine a shopkeeper choosing a protective sign, not to be daring, but to feel safer about business and family. In that choice, you hear a voice from the past saying, quietly and clearly, that luck matters and that protection is worth displaying. A bakery's stamp named its owner, turning bread into a personal brand. In Pompeii, bread was everyday, yet it could still carry identity. A bakery stamp could impress a name into the loaf, marking it as the product of a specific maker. That single detail turns food into reputation. If your bread was good, the stamp helped customers find you again. If it was poor, the stamp could work against you. Branding sounds modern, yet this is the same idea, a guarantee you attach to something people eat. It also hints at scale, because a stamp makes sense when you produce many loaves and want them recognized quickly. Picture a bakery in the early hours, ovens heating, workers moving with practiced urgency, and a final press of the stamp before baking. The mark is small, but it carries confidence. It says, "This loaf came from my hands and my business." In a city filled with competing shops, a name on bread is a bold form of visibility and a reminder that even ordinary goods could carry pride. Many buildings show earthquake repairs because the region shook years before. Pompeii's last chapter was not the first disaster it faced. Years before the eruption, a major earthquake damaged buildings across the region, and the city shows signs of patching, rebuilding, and improvisation afterward. You can see places where walls were reinforced, where materials changed, and where repairs look hurried or uneven. That evidence is gripping because it captures a city in recovery. Life did not pause for perfect restoration. People continued trading, arguing, celebrating, and renovating in stages, sometimes with scaffolding and fresh plaster still in place. It also reveals resilience. Communities adapt to damage, and they learn to live with cracks and uncertainty. This background matters when you imagine the eruption. It struck a city that already carried scars, a city that had been trying to repair its own future. Picture a homeowner debating whether to rebuild a room now or later, a shopkeeper patching a wall to reopen quickly, and officials prioritizing which public samla buildings to fix first. Pompeii preserves those choices, frozen mid-repair, which makes the final catastrophe feel even more abrupt. Cracked walls and patched masonry reveal constant maintenance in a living city. A ruined city can look finished, yet Pompeii shows something more ordinary and more revealing. Many walls are a patchwork of repairs, with different stone sizes, different mortar textures, and seams where old work met new work. That tells you the city was never static. Buildings aged, settled, and suffered small failures, and owners responded with practical fixes rather than perfection. A crack might be stitched with fresh mortar. A weakened corner might be rebuilt with whatever material was available that week. Sometimes repairs look careful, sometimes they look rushed, and that range feels honest. It suggests budgets, priorities, and the pressure to keep a shop or home functioning. Maintenance also implies a workforce. Masons, plasterers, and laborers were part of the urban ecosystem, moving from job to job as needs appeared. Pompeii preserves their everyday problem-solving in the very skin of its walls. Some houses were mid-renovation when disaster hit, with tools left behind. In a few homes, you can sense the moment work stopped. Fresh plaster waits unfinished. Walls show layers where old decoration was being covered for a new look. Floors may be partly lifted or partly laid, and the space feels paused rather than abandoned. Tools and materials left in place turn renovation into a timestamp. A bucket suggests mixing and carrying. A trowel suggests smoothing and shaping. A stack of tiles suggests a plan that was already paid for. Renovation also reveals ambition. Someone wanted to update a room, impress guests, or repair damage that had become impossible to ignore. It is a reminder that people were investing in tomorrow, not preparing for an ending. Picture a homeowner checking progress, a worker wiping sweat, and a final decision to stop for the day. Then the mountain interrupts everything. These half-finished projects make the tragedy sharper because they preserve hopes that were still under construction. Pompeii's population included enslaved people, freed people, and wealthy patrons. Pompeii was a shared city, yet it was not an equal one. Daily life brought together people with radically different power, from wealthy patrons with large houses to enslaved workers who kept those households running. Freed people add another layer, because freedom could be gained and identities could be rebuilt through work, savings, and connections. That mix created a city where status was visible in clothing, in space, and in who could speak with authority. It was also visible in labor. Shops, workshops, kitchens, and building sites relied on hands that history often leaves unnamed. At the same time, public life depended on wealthy benefactors who funded buildings, games, and decoration to earn admiration. Pompeii preserves this layered society in its layout. Some doorways open into painted luxury, while others lead to tight rooms above a shop. Walking the streets means moving through a social ladder built into stone. tomb inscriptions outside the walls give names, jobs, and family ties. Outside Pompeii's gates, tombs lined the roads like a public memory lane. Travelers entering the city would pass names carved in stone, and those names often came with roles, relationships, and pride. An inscription might identify a person's occupation, which turns a grave into a small biography. It might name parents, spouses, or children, which makes loss feel specific rather than distant. Some epitaphs speak in a voice that feels direct, as if the deceased is still introducing themselves to strangers. The location matters too. Being remembered beside a busy road meant being seen, again and again, by the living. These tombs also reveal community structures, because some burials connect to associations and shared groups that helped members in death, as well as life. When you picture an ancient traveler approaching Pompeii, imagine the first greetings coming not from the forum, but from the dead, speaking through carefully chosen dowel. Words. Some epitaphs celebrate freedmen's success, showing social mobility could happen. A freed person in Roman society carried a complicated story, because freedom was real, yet the past still shaped the present. In Pompeii, some epitaphs speak with pride about success after enslavement. They may highlight a business, a household built, or a family established. That pride is not vanity. It is a declaration that a life can turn. Freed people often took a new name that reflected a former owner, and that naming system itself becomes a clue to social ties and obligations. Success could also depend on skill and trust, because running a shop, managing accounts, or supplying goods required reputation. These epitaphs are fascinating because they reveal ambition carved into stone, not written for a private diary. They say, "I mattered here." They also hint at the emotional weight of achieving stability in a world that measured people sharply. Pompeii preserves that mix of constraint and possibility in voices that still insist on being heard. City gates controlled movement, and roads linked Pompeii to wider Italy. A city gate is both welcome and warning. It is where travelers arrive, where goods enter, and where officials can watch the flow of people. Pompeii's gates connected to roads that carried traders, farmers, messengers, and visitors, tying the town into a wider world of movement. Dates also shaped rhythm. They marked the transition from road dust to urban streets, and they could become bottlenecks where carts and crowds had to negotiate space. In times of tension, a gate can become a place of control, with inspection, rules, and the quiet power to deny entry. Even in ordinary times, gates framed identity. Crossing into the city meant stepping into its laws, its markets, and its social expectations. Imagine arriving at dusk, hearing voices inside, seeing walls rise ahead, and feeling the relief of shelter. Pompeii's gates remind you that ancient cities were not open fields of ruins. They were managed environments with boundaries that mattered. Milestones and ruts mark heavy traffic, driven by trade and farming. The roads around Pompeii carried the weight of daily survival. Farms needed routes to bring produce and supplies into town, and merchants needed reliable paths to move goods outward. Milestones mattered because they turned travel into measured space. They announced distances, reinforced authority, and helped travelers plan time and effort. A road with milestones is a road that expects regular use. It expects maintenance, patrol, and continued investment. Heavy traffic also shaped how people understood the landscape. A nearby town was not only a dot on a map. It was a known number of miles away, a familiar journey with familiar stops. This kind of infrastructure supports an economy that reaches beyond local streets. It allows shipments to be scheduled and contracts to be honored. When you picture Pompeii's prosperity, picture roads as arteries pulsing with carts, animals, and voices. The city's life did not begin at its walls, and it did not end there either. A large palestra served exercise, swimming, and youth training. In Pompeii, physical training had a home that was both practical and social. The palestra was a broad open complex where young people could practice athletics, learn discipline, and build bodies suited to a public life that valued strength. Exercise was not only personal health, it was preparation for citizenship, confidence, and presence. The presence of a swimming pool adds another dimension, because water training was both skill and recreation in a coastal region. You can imagine the splash of dives, the laughter of friends, and the stern instruction of a trainer calling for another lap. The palestra also offered a space where the city could see its youth in motion, which made it a kind of public promise. A community invests in training when it expects a future. Standing in that space today, you can still sense the scale that was built for bodies moving together, for games, for rivalry, and for the pride of growing into adulthood under the eyes of neighbors. Painted slogans sometimes mocked candidates, proving politics invited humor and cruelty. Campaign writing on walls did not always stay respectful. In a city where everyone saw the same messages, it was tempting to answer back, and some people did. A supportive slogan could be altered by a rival hand, changing praise into ridicule with a few sharp strokes. A candidate's name could become the center of a joke that spread across streets faster than any official announcement. This is political life at its most human, because it shows that elections were not only duty, they were entertainment, conflict, and social theater. Mockery also served a purpose. It could undermine confidence, signal insider knowledge, or simply vent frustration. The wall became a battleground of reputation where a person's public image could be built and chipped away in the same week. Imagine reading a fresh endorsement in the morning, then returning later to find it defaced by someone with different loyalties. Pompei preserves this back and forth, which makes its politics feel immediate, noisy, and sharply competitive. Latin spelling varies in graffiti, revealing accents, literacy levels, and mistakes. Graffiti is often informal, and that informality makes it a gift to historians. When someone writes quickly, they tend to spell words the way they sound, and that can expose accent and pronunciation. In Pompeii, varied spellings suggest that Latin was not spoken with one uniform voice. It had local flavors, borrowed sounds, and everyday shortcuts that formal texts try to hide. Some writers spell confidently. Others hesitate, drop letters, or swap them, which hints at people learning through speech more than schooling. You can almost hear the city through these inconsistencies, because language becomes audible on the wall. Graffiti also shows how writing was used. It was not only for official business. It was for jokes, insults, romance, and small claims of presence. That makes spelling variation more than error. It is evidence of real people grabbing language in the moment, imperfectly and honestly. Pompeii lets you meet those voices, not polished for readers, but captured as they were. Some graffiti records a bar tab, turning a wall into a receipt. In a city full of noise and movement, a wall could become the most reliable memory. One scratched note can record what someone owed for drinks, turning plaster into a casual ledger that everyone could see. That detail is thrilling because it shows trust and social pressure working together. If you do not pay, your debt is public, and your reputation becomes part of the payment system. It also hints at how often people returned to the same places. A tab only makes sense when a customer is expected to come back. You can picture the scene. A busy counter. A quick pour. Coins that are short today, with a promise to settle later. Then the owner marks it down where it cannot be misplaced, and where it quietly reminds you each time you pass. It is a snapshot of ordinary economics, and it makes the ancient world feel immediate because debts and promises sound the same in any century. Other graffiti lists friends' names, like a roll call of ordinary lives. Some messages are not about business or boasting. They are simple lists of names, set down as if someone wanted to say, "We were here, and we mattered to each other." A list can be affectionate without any flowery language. It can mark a friendship group, a shared night out, or a moment of pride in belonging. That is why these names feel so powerful. They are not emperors or generals. They are ordinary people who expected to be forgotten, and yet their names survived when marble statues did not. The lists also hint at social networks, because names often cluster in ways that suggest a circle of companions. You can imagine someone scratching them into plaster while others laughed nearby, and the act itself becomes part of the memory. There is also something brave in it. Writing your name in public space is a small claim on the city, a quiet statement that you exist. Pompeii gives those statements back to us, intact. Many fresco pigments came from far away, showing global trade in color. The colors on Pompeii's walls were not always local earth, scraped from nearby hills. Some pigments required minerals from distant regions, processed through skilled methods, then sold through trade networks that linked ports, workshops, and markets. That means a painted bedroom could contain the geography of an empire. A homeowner might admire a deep blue or a bright yellow without thinking about the mines, the grinding, or the shipping that made it possible. Painters had to understand how these pigments behaved too. Some colors covered well, others demanded careful layering, and some could fade or change if handled badly. This is why pigment choice was both artistic and economic. A costly color could signal wealth and taste, while a more common one could still be used cleverly for warmth and depth. When you look at surviving frescoes, you are not only seeing art. You are seeing supply chains, specialized labor, and the quiet global reach of Roman commerce, all pressed into plaster. The brilliant red Pompeian hue relied on minerals and careful technique. That famous red does not happen by accident. It depends on specific mineral sources, careful grinding, and controlled application, because a strong red can look flat or harsh if handled without skill. Roman painters understood how to build richness with layers, how to frame scenes with bold fields of color, and how to balance red against blacks, whites, and delicate day details. The result could make a room feel warm, dramatic, and expensive, even when the space was small. This color also carried meaning. Red can signal power, celebration, and luxury, which made it perfect for reception rooms and dining areas where a household wanted to impress. The technique mattered as much as the material, because the best examples hold their intensity after centuries. When you imagine a fresh painted wall in a newly finished room, picture the moment it first dried. The color would have glowed in lamplight, and it would have turned ordinary conversation into something staged and memorable, simply through the atmosphere it created. Statues in public spaces projected power, memory, and civic pride. A statue in the open air is a message that never stops speaking. In Pompeii, statues could honor gods, emperors, or local benefactors, and their placement made sure everyone understood who deserved attention. A figure in a forum or near a major building shaped how people moved and what they noticed first. It also shaped memory. A public statue trains a city to remember certain names and faces, even if most citizens never met the person being honored. For local elites, that mattered deeply. Sponsoring public works and earning a statue could turn wealth into lasting influence. These objects also organized civic emotion. During festivals, processions, or announcements, statues became silent witnesses that lent authority to the moment. Imagine a crowd gathered, shifting and murmuring, while a stone figure looks on from a pedestal. The statue does not need to move. Its job is to be there, to be seen, and to remind everyone that public life has hierarchy. Pompeii preserves that visual politics, frozen in place. Small household objects survived, including lamps, needles, and children's toys. The most moving artifacts are sometimes the smallest because they speak of hands rather than institutions. A needle suggests mending, and mending suggests clothing that mattered enough to repair. A lamp suggests evenings shaped by flickering light and the quiet routines that follow sunset. A toy suggests childhood, and childhood suggests a home where play was part of daily life. These objects also reveal a rhythm of care. Someone stitched a torn garment instead of replacing it. Someone refilled an oil lamp so a room could stay usable after dark. Someone gave a child something to hold, to roll, or to imagine with. That is not grand history. It is the private infrastructure of living. Pompeii preserves it because the eruption sealed rooms as they were, with items left on shelves, in corners, and near doorways. When you picture the last day, these objects remind you that many people were not thinking about legends or catastrophes. They were thinking about work, repairs, bedtime, and tomorrow's errands. And those ordinary thoughts are exactly what make the site so haunting. Oil lamps carried maker marks, another quiet signature of commerce. A lamp seems like a simple object, yet many were made in molds that could include a mark identifying the workshop. That turns a household item into a trace of business competition. If a lamp burned well and lasted, the maker's mark was an advertisement that traveled from home to home. It also hints at mass production. Mold-made lamps could be produced in large numbers, which means workshops were geared for steady demand across a busy city. Lamps could also carry decorative designs, so even light could be stylish. People do not only want illumination, they want objects that feel pleasing to use. The mark matters because it ties daily comfort to the economy. Someone chose that lamp, paid for it, and trusted the maker. Someone else produced it, fired it, and sold it as part of a livelihood. When you imagine Pompeii at night, picture a row of lamps glowing behind shutters, each one fed with oil, each one stamped by a workshop that expected to be known. The darkness was real, and so was the market that pushed it back. Bread ovens show intense heat control, with domed designs still copied today. A good oven is a controlled environment, and Pompeii's bakeries prove that Romans understood heat as something to shape rather than endure. Many ovens were built with domed interiors that helped circulate hot air, letting bread bake evenly instead of scorching on one side. That design also holds heat after the fire dies down, which means a baker can time batches and use fuel efficiently. The oven became the heart of the production space, with workers managing firewood, ash, and airflow like a practiced routine. You can picture the moment the door opens, when heat pours out and the smell of baking grain fills the room. The dome is not only a shape. It is a technique refined through experience and repeated across generations. This is why similar domed ovens still appear in traditional bakeries and pizza shops, because the physics works. Pompeii preserves these ovens as proof that ancient food was not improvised over a flame alone. It relied on engineered spaces where temperature could be guided with skill, turning grain into dependable daily bread. Some houses had upper floors, suggesting crowded living beyond ground level. Pompeii was not only a city of courtyard homes spread comfortably on one level. In many places, buildings rose upward, creating extra rooms above shops and behind street fronts. Upper floors could provide private sleeping spaces, storage, or rentals that brought in income. They also changed how the city felt. More people could live within the same footprint, and that density would sharpen noise, smells, and social friction. It would also create a layered neighborhood life, where someone might lean from a window to speak to a friend below, or watch street activity without stepping outside. Upper floors are harder to preserve, yet the evidence for them reshapes your mental map. It reminds you that Pompeii was not a static postcard of villas. It was a working town under pressure, with households adapting space to meet needs. When you imagine daily routines, include stairs climbed at night, baskets hauled upward, and the small relief of closing a door above the street where a family could pew. Find a little separation from the crowd. Staircases and balconies reveal vertical city life, not just single-story villas. A staircase is a promise that something important exists above eye level. In Pompeii, staircases and balcony traces reveal a city that used height for living, working, and watching. Balconies could offer airflow and a place to dry goods, and they could also serve as social platforms where people observed the street like a theater. Height changes behavior. A conversation from above becomes public. A shout carries farther. A glance from a balcony can feel like surveillance, and that can influence how strangers act below. Stairs also divide space within a home. The ground level can be for business or reception, while upper rooms become quieter and more private. This vertical arrangement makes the city feel more crowded and more dynamic than a flat plan suggests. It also makes the eruption more complex, because upper floors face different risks than street level, and escape routes can narrow to a single stair. When you picture Pompeii, picture not only streets and doorways, but the hidden life above them, layered like stories in a book. Pets and livestock remains show humans were not the only victims. In Pompeii, the tragedy includes lives that had no say in the choices made around them. Excavations have revealed animals caught in the same emergency as their owners, including pets that stayed close to home and livestock kept for food or work. These finds widen the story beyond human drama, because they show how tightly urban life was tied to animals every day. A household might depend on an animal for guarding, hauling, or steady nourishment, and their dependence could become vulnerability when escape required speed. Animal remains also help reconstruct neighborhoods. A place with livestock points to storage, feeding, and smells that shape the street. A pet hints at affection, routine, and the small comforts people build into ordinary days. When you picture the final hours, imagine frightened animals reacting to ashfall and noise, while doors close and routes vanish. Pompeii preserves that helplessness, and it makes the disaster feel even more real. The city's silence today comes from removal, because excavations emptied rooms. When people visit Pompeii, the emptiness can feel like a natural part of ruin, yet much of that emptiness was created by excavation. To expose buildings, archaeologists cleared out ash and debris, and in doing so, they removed the packed material that once filled spaces like a cast. Objects were taken for study, storage, or display, and many rooms were left bare so walls, floors, and layouts could be seen. That decision changed how the city feels. An ancient home was once crowded with wood, fabric, and tools. But those materials rarely survive or remain in place after digging. Even when objects exist, they are often separated from their original setting. The result is a city that looks quieter than it ever was. Recognizing this is powerful, because it reminds you that Pompeii is both an ancient place and a modern project. What you see is shaped by choices about what to remove, what to preserve, and what to present as the story. Early excavators sometimes took art for collectors, shaping what remains on site. Pompeii was rediscovered in an era when ancient art was prized as treasure, and that attitude shaped the site from the beginning. Early digging often focused on eye-catching objects, including statues, fresco panels, and fine household pieces that could be moved into private collections or royal displays. Some rooms were emptied quickly, while less glamorous areas were ignored. That approach did not only remove objects, it also changed what future researchers could learn, because context matters. A painting on a wall tells one story in its original room, and a different story when cut away and relocated. Over time, methods improved and ethics shifted, yet the early choices left permanent gaps. This is not only a cautionary tale about archaeology. It is also a reminder that the past can be reshaped by what people want from it. Pompeii became famous, and that fame attracted hands that did not always ask what should remain or why. Modern conservation fights sun and rain because exposure slowly erases the past. The eruption preserved Pompeii by sealing it, but excavation exposed it to weather that the buried city had been protected from for centuries. Sunlight fades pigments. Rain seeps into masonry, then expands damage through repeated wetting and drying. Plants push roots into cracks, and small fractures become large ones over time. Conservation teams face a constant balancing act. Visitors want access, and scholars want study, yet every open surface is at risk. Conservators stabilize walls, reinforce plaster, manage drainage, and sometimes cover fragile areas to slow deterioration. They also make difficult decisions about restoration. Too little intervention can mean loss. Too much can replace ancient material with modern patching that misleads the eye. This ongoing effort is part of Pompeii's story now, and it adds a layer of urgency. The city is not only threatened by volcanic memory, it is threatened by ordinary weather, the same forces that erase ruins everywhere, one season at a time. New digs still find unexcavated blocks, meaning Pompeii is not finished speaking. Despite its fame, Pompeii is not fully uncovered. Large areas remain unexcavated, and that is not a failure. It is often a deliberate choice, because leaving areas buried can protect them until conservation methods are ready. When new sections are explored, they can reveal rooms no one has seen since the 1st century, with objects and wall surfaces still in place. That possibility keeps the site alive as a source of discovery rather than a finished exhibit. It also means the story can change. A single newly uncovered shop can reshape what we think about local trades. A new dining room can challenge assumptions about taste or wealth. Even a small inscription can introduce a name that rewrites a neighborhood's history. This is one reason Pompeii remains so captivating. It is not only a preserved city, it is an unfolding archive where buried streets still wait in darkness, holding evidence that can surprise the modern world again. Volcanic layers act like timestamps, letting scientists reconstruct the eruption minute by minute. Pompeii is a disaster story, yet it is also a scientific record written in layers. Different kinds of deposit arrived at different times, and each layer carries clues about what was happening in the volcano and in the sky. Coarser pumice suggests one phase. Finer ash suggests another. Changes in grain size, density, and distribution can indicate shifts in eruption intensity and direction. In some places, the layering can even show pauses, surges, and sudden transitions that match eyewitness accounts from the wider region. This is what makes the site so valuable to volcanology. It is not only ruins under ash. It is ash with structure, preserved in place. By reading those layers carefully, scientists can piece together a timeline of hazards, which matters for understanding how similar eruptions behave. Pompeii helps translate volcanic violence into sequence and mechanism, and that knowledge can inform risk planning for modern communities living near active tau. Volcanoes. Chemical traces in ash reveal wind shifts, guiding where the cloud traveled. Ash is not only dust. It is a mix of minerals and microscopic fragments that carry a chemical signature from the eruption. By analyzing that material across different locations, researchers can track patterns in how the plume moved and how it changed. If winds shift during an eruption, the direction of ashfall can change too, and that can expose new areas with little warning. Chemical and mineral differences can also hint at changes inside the volcano over time, as different parts of the magma system feed the plume. This work turns Pompeii into more than a local tragedy. It becomes a reference point for understanding how eruption clouds behave across a region. It also explains why people in different places experience different conditions, even on the same day. The same eruption can drop heavy material in one direction and fine ash in another, and the wind is often the unseen hand that decides. Pompeii's deposits still carry that invisible weather, preserved as scientific evidence. Pompeii teaches disaster planning because people faced warnings and chose differently. The ruins do not only show what happened, they show how people respond when the future turns uncertain. Some residents appear to have left early, and some stayed longer, perhaps because of family, illness, responsibility, or disbelief. The city also shows how built environments shape survival. Narrow streets can clog. Heavy roofs can become hazards. Familiar routes can disappear when debris piles up. These lessons are not limited to volcanoes. They apply to many disasters where time, mobility, and decision-making matter. Pompeii also reminds us that warnings are complicated. Signs can be ambiguous, and people interpret them through daily life, experience, and hope. A tremor can feel like a passing nuisance until it is not. Studying these patterns helps modern planners think about evacuation messaging, route design, and the needs of vulnerable groups who cannot move quickly. Pompeii is history, but it is also a mirror. It shows that the hardest part of a disaster is often the moment before, when choices still exist and no one knows which one will be safe. The site preserves both tragedy and beauty, making history feel uncomfortably close. Pompeii is haunting because it refuses to be only one thing. It holds exquisite art, clever engineering, and playful writing, yet it also holds sudden death and interrupted lives. That combination creates a tension that visitors feel in their bodies. You might admire a painted room, then turn a corner and encounter a cast that brings you back to the human cost. The beauty is not a distraction. It is part of the tragedy, because it shows what was lost. It also makes the people more recognizable. A love note on a wall, a carefully arranged garden space, a charming design at an entrance. All of it suggests minds like ours. This closeness is the site's deepest power. It collapses time. It makes ancient people feel less like a category and more like neighbors who happen to live under a dangerous mountain. Pompeii is uncomfortable because it is honest. It shows how ordinary life can exist beside immense risk and how quickly the balance can break. Every fresh discovery reshapes the story because Pompeii is still being uncovered. Even after centuries of study, Pompeii keeps producing new information that changes what we think we already know. A newly revealed inscription can identify a person, a shop, or a political rivalry. A newly uncovered room can show an unexpected style of decoration, suggesting shifting tastes or new wealth. A set of objects found together can change how we interpret a space, turning a room once labeled one way into something entirely different. This constant revision is part of what makes Pompeii so captivating for listeners. It is not a sealed narrative with a final moral. It is an active investigation, where careful work can overturn confident assumptions. That is also how good history behaves. It remains open to evidence. Pompeii invites that openness because it is both a place and a puzzle. As more areas are stabilized and explored, the city becomes more complex, not less. Each discovery adds voices, details, and contradictions, and the result is a past that feels alive because it keeps surprising the present. As we come to the end of our journey through Pompeii, you can let the city slowly fade back into the distance. We wandered its streets and stepped into its hose. We listened to voices scratched into walls, followed water through fountains and pipes, and felt the weight of ordinary lives paused in a single moment. Pompeii revealed itself not as a tale of stone and ash alone, but as a place of movement, laughter, work, hope, and habit. A living city, caught mid-breath. You may still be picturing sunlit courtyards, painted walls glowing with color, and narrow streets worn smooth by countless footsteps. You may be imagining the rhythm of daily life, bread baking, water flowing, doors opening at dawn. These images do not need to stay sharp. You can let them soften now, like outlines at dusk. The details can drift, leaving only the feeling of having visited somewhere deeply human and strangely familiar. If you are still awake and you would like to continue this calm exploration, there will be another video waiting for you on the screen. You are always welcome to follow the next path whenever it feels right. And if these journeys bring you comfort, you might consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a quiet thought below. It helps others discover these stories too. For now, there is nothing more to do. Allow your breathing to slow. Let your body rest into the surface beneath you. The streets of Pompeii can fall silent again, not with loss, but with peace. History has been heard, and it can rest. Sleep well, and good night.